One screen issue. Let me bear with this. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, wouldn't be a Keller Williams training session if we didn't remind you that these materials are copyrighted, as well as please follow the TCPA and do all your
Brian, you're not sharing your screen.
Thank you very much. And the operator failures. All right. We good?
Yep, there it is. Yep,
awesome.
You're good.
Thank you. All right. So moving right along, we do encourage everybody to follow all important federal laws, TCPA, so forth and so on. So today's session is about following up with leads. I understand the last session was keep every lead. So once, one of our goals is once we get a response from a lead is to actually convert that to an appointment. Now on that note, after lead generation, I would encourage you guys to also make sure you have lead conversion in your schedule. So quick, comment. If you're lead generating and get a really well qualified lead, some people will say, stop what you're doing and follow up on that lead right then and there. I would challenge people, if you get a really qualified lead, take the notes, keep lead generating, and then put those notes in your calendar afterwards. Does anybody know why I would recommend that you keep lead generating after a great conversation or lead? Anybody care to volunteer?
Well, you're going to be energized, and you're going to be in a good state. So you're going to be, that next conversation is just going to go that much more smoothly.
You're spot on. Your energy, you're going to be pumped, you're going to be contagious, as opposed to if they catch you at a long lead gen session and you're not having a lot of luck, your energy may not be as high. Simply put, if we don't have leads to convert, we don't have leads to follow up, and then we don't have appointments, and we will not have buyer or seller agreements. And without agreements, we can't have contracts.
And we have one comment that says confident.
Absolutely. You'll absolutely come across more confident if you get a great lead and then continue to follow up. I'd also encourage people, as you're lead generating, don't hesitate to use accountability partners. A lot of times if I'm lead generating, set a great appointment, people will hear me pound my desk after I hang up with the people to keep the excitement going along. When you guys are lead generating, what do you believe, what do you run into for challenges along the path of lead generating? So we don't run any challenges with either not lead generating because we're not running into them. What ran into me, what I used to run into,
someone said ghosting.
Yes, ghosting. So one of the things we'll talk about when we actually talk about setting the appointments is tracking our lead conversion. One of the more painful processes I went through was tracking my lead generation efforts for a month. How many calls, how many contacts, how many appointments I set, and how many appointments actually showed up too. And when I studied that, it showed me a lot of where I needed to improve as a professional, in my competency level. So today's agenda, to learn about lead conversion, how to convert lead to an appointment, improving our conversion rates, and we'll definitely be discussing recaps and AHAs. Side note, I just learned in the last year, AHAs are agents helping agents. So by the end of the day, we hope that you'll be able to apply the lead conversion model, develop your systems for capturing, cultivating, converting, and closing leads, and apply some proven methods to increase your conversion rate over time. So let's consider what questions that you might have about lead conversion and you'd like to know about lead conversions. Now, normally, if we were in person, we'd probably break into some groups. But one of the questions we asked, somebody asked early is ways to follow up with leads that's not stalking them, not my words, not theirs, getting a restraining order. Do you guys believe that the different generations in our marketplace convert in or communicate in different fashions?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Drew, you were shaking your head very, emphatically. When you think of the different generations, what comes to mind for you and how they communicate?
It's different work ethics, different mindsets. I do human resources at a supermarket, so I hire from the 15-year-olds to the 70-year-olds.
Mhm.
So I see how they interact, how they, hold their head up, how they make eye contact, how they hold a conversation. So different generations are gonna have different outlooks on a conversation with you, their outlook on the market, what they want. Older generations know what they want, they know what to expect. Younger generations, not so much. So you have to know who you're dealing with and kind of play to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys two quick stories. One, I one time had a complaint from a for sale by owner who wanted their commission back from our firm because the agent never communicated with them other than text. Now, I'm sure there was some exaggeration, some in-person meetings, some actual conversations. On the same very transaction, I got a compliment and a positive review from the same exact agent because they communicated, were so willing to communicate via text and really work with our buyer clients. Now, one, I had to point out to the seller that the commission wouldn't be returned because it wasn't their commission. It was paid on behalf of our buyers. But when I walked away, I thought, one, we've got a great agent. We just need to help them communicate better on both sides of the fence post, because with their buyers being, millennials or, Gen Z, they love that our agent texted so much. The baby boomers, Drew might have been, different in the sense that they were older. They didn't like texting. And so to them, it wasn't a great level of communication. So back to that statement, have form, but be formless. Really think about who you're communicating with and what's the best format, not for you, but for them. Any other questions that come to mind around lead conversion right off the bat? Or lead follow-up, excuse me. I'll throw out one idea for you, then we'll get to the next slide. Guilt-free follow-up. Anybody ever get called by a salesperson so many times they did want to issue a restraining order and tell them never to call again? Don't be that person. So I'll give you a quick example. If I was calling Donna, third, fourth time, we talked a month or so ago, I might say, hey, Donna, I'm sure you're straight out busy. Don't worry about it. If you can't get back to me, I just want to let you know I was looking for some homes for you. I found one or two that might be of interest. If I don't hear from you, don't worry about it. I'll just follow up in a couple weeks. I hope all is well. Guilt-free lead follow-up and conversion. So lead conversion is an essential part of the follow-up process. Often people assume that lead generation, lead conversion are the same. You guys know this. They are definitely not the same. At the core, lead generation is when we turn activities, that is prospecting, marketing, into leads. Lead conversion happens after the lead is captured. It is part of our lead follow-up. It's unique because there are activities that turn leads into appointments with the end goal of being a transaction. And let me just move on my notes here. Do you guys think that lead generation and follow-up or conversion deserve the same amount of time in your calendars? Bruce, looks like you're thinking deeply.
Yeah, it's just trying to weigh it out. I would say yes.
Why would you say yes? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, your lead generation is going to be filling the funnel. Your lead conversion is moving that to the next level. So you kind of can't have one without the other. And if you do, then you're going to run out of your funnel.
Candidly, I agree. You know, I would also probably say it depends a little bit about where you're at in the cycle of your pipeline and your business. There's an analogy from the book Great by Choice that success is like a 2,000-pound concrete flywheel. It's really easy to keep it spinning once you get it spinning. So in the beginning, and notice I think we had some people been in just about a year, one person 4 years, one person 4 weeks. You know, in the beginning, you may spend, you know, an inordinate amount of time trying to get your concrete flywheel called success spinning. But definitely be cognizant to make sure you have that time for lead follow-up and conversion. I think most of us are great at the really easy leads, the lead that comes in that wants to see a house, they've gotten pre-approved, they're ready to go. Whereas I think a lot of us, and myself included, can grow on the lead follow-up aspect.
Rena says that both are equally important.
I would agree, Rena. Thank you, Katie. I would absolutely agree. I would challenge you guys not to block your calendars with just lead generation and consider them one, excuse me. I would encourage you to block your calendars for lead generation time and a separate lead follow-up time. Side note, there's a very old, and if you Google MIT sales study, you'll probably find about a 10-year-old sales follow-up in, study using MIT. In Wednesdays from 4 to 6, and I think Thursdays from 4 to 6 were some of the best times to connect with leads. The effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating with them. I would completely agree with that. So the lead conversion process, converting lead appointments process can happen quickly in some cases, although in many cases it happens really, really slowly. BookShift tells us that consistently generating every possible appointment from the leads that you generate isn't complicated, but it does require preparation, practice, and purposeful action. As you can see from this, this starts at the top with the capture. You must capture correct information, enough information to be able to contact the person. And then you must move to building a connection and building a trust. Finally, it starts with setting an appointment. Without the appointment, conversion cannot or just can't happen. When the conversions, when you guys have a conversation that doesn't result into an appointment, that is when the lead follow-up process and conversion begins. So you can continue the lead as part of a regular lead follow-up in the program until they're ready to convert for an appointment. So I don't know about you guys, but when I would get leads, I'd get really excited because I just talked to somebody who's just getting ready to sell a house, and then I'd almost celebrate as if it occurred. Anybody ever have that same experience? Okay. What I needed to do to temper my high eye was remember that it's actually probable business, and then it can become a profitable business. So after lead generation, lead conversion, the most critical activity you must master, and where it is, if I can read this evening and speak, is possible as this comes from lead generated activities that turn into probable business and ultimately into profitable business. Converting to the lead to an appointment has so much importance because it gives you the chance of earning the income. Converting appointments to business also is a key economic success factor. And we'll learn more about that on the next session.
And Drew agreed with you on the last statement that you made.
Excellent. Anybody have any ahas in the brief time we've been together so far? Anything you've heard so far that makes you think a little bit differently? Bruce?
I would say the most important thing so far is to track the lead generation, especially if it's something that you're spending money on. So you kind of know where your strengths and weaknesses are and where your return of time is coming from.
That is huge. And we'll actually talk about that in a couple slides. So I would expand on Bruce. I think you're spot on. I would track not only where they're coming from, but our ability to convert them them to appointments. And then I'd also try to triangulate them to industry norms. So I'll give you an example. When I think of internet leads, does anybody know the conversion rates for the average internet leads?
10%.
10%, very close. Depending who you
5%.
depending who you talk to, you're probably going to hear 4 to 7%. So a lot of us really love the Zillow leads because you come right at us, but they come with fees and so forth. And again, they've got a conversion rate depending upon how good you're on the phone of 4 to 7%, versus your sphere of influence, or possibly Facebook ads, which I've had very good luck with that. Most powerful is probably your database.
And Drew stated that guilt-free follow-up was a great aha.
Excellent. Thank you, Drew. Yeah, that one's an important one. Kill them with kindness. Another great book as a side note, and this is hardcore corniness, is How to Win Friends and Influence by Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. A little bit of a Brian pet peeve. I know a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who used to say, if I was talking to Bruce about potentially getting together to price his home for sale, I would say, Bruce, what I would love to do with humor, is it about what we'd love to do, or is it about what the lead wants to do? So just a thought when you're speaking with people, always make it about them. All right, how to convert a lead to appointment. In this section, we're going to get into specific steps of lead conversion models for converting leads to appointments. This model is going to help us structure for success and lay groundwork for future accomplishments. Now, at its simplest, capturing is collecting the minimum amount of valid contact information for a potential buyer or seller. This should include, obviously, their names, how to get a hold of them, email, phone number, and most likely this will occur when you are lead generating. What comes to mind is some other ways to potentially capture people's information. Bo, you look like you're thinking deeply.
I'm just trying to absorb it all. I mean, another way to capture information. I'm not sure. I'm new. I'm still trying to get my feet wet. Dual career, so
Excellent.
don't have a ton of time, but
No problem. Appreciate your candor.
social media, maybe. I don't know.
So, and we'll get to Elizabeth in just a second too. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So a couple of things that come to mind with social media. One of the things you may ask your team leader about is, bold reverse 100. So we would see some agents actually offer up something like running a contest. Hey, we're looking to help people buy or sell real estate. I've got 2 free tickets, to blank. If you know somebody's thinking of buying or sell, just DM me your contact information so I can follow up with you. And that's a way where you're coming from contribution and they're sending you the information. Now, Elizabeth, I think you had something to add as well.
I was gonna say open houses, open signing sheet. Also, you can actually buy leads if you want. Public records.
You're spot on. Open house registrations are also great ones. You could also do QR codes on flyers that will track, should be able to communicate with the information. Don't hesitate to take a look and talk with your team lead, or if you're on a team, I've seen people use specific Google numbers. So for example, team I used to operate in addition to the other companies I'm involved in, we would have one specific number on a sign for foreclosures. So we could tell when somebody was calling in about a foreclosure versus a normal for sale sign. So you can take a look at different Google numbers. You could possibly, this wouldn't be through the KW email. You could consider setting up some domains for emails so that if you were, say, doing a mailer to investment property owners, you could have a specific email for that so you could track where that email was coming from. Anybody else have any ideas on how to track, our leads and where they're coming from.
Veronica in the chat said birthday. Diana said mailing, door knock, hold a class, expires, friends, family, past coworkers.
Great suggestions. Great suggestions. Absolutely excellent suggestions. So when we're capturing, it's important, obviously, that we know what we're going to say before we start the conversation. Now, in your participation guides, which I don't have one in front of me, so I trust you guys do, there's some great framework on page 93. So a couple things that come to mind. Here's one of my fail forwards. If I was talking with you about a potential lead, or when I was team leader of the market center, I'm an OP right now, I'd say, hey, Rena, would it be okay if I got your email? And my guess is Rena would be thinking, well, is it okay if I give Brian this email? Versus, hey, Rena, what's the best email address to reach you at? Couple of the things that come to mind. This is on your, participations guide. If I were to need to contact you, what's the best number to reach you at? If I found that home that really spoke to me as the right home for you, what's the best number to reach you at? Respecting, this is give you a little hint, respecting that 10, 15 minutes ago, we were talking how different generations communicate. What's another great question we may want to ask our leads?
How do you prefer to be contacted, by email or phone?
Donna, thank you. Spot on. Candidly, with, and I know we're probably all busy with the business that I have on my plate and the different companies I'm involved in. If people leave me voicemails, I hate to say it, I occasionally miss them. So I encourage, people, if you want to get a hold of me, the best way to get a hold of me is text. Diana Elfrich, thank you very much. What's your time frame?
And Drew said, or text.
Yeah, text.
With a smiley face.
Now, as a side note, and this is not in the manual, I'm going to encourage you guys to think about phrases in conversations that spark dopamine, and other positive feelings in the person's body. When would you like to begin your search for your next property? Rena, when would be a great time to, communicate with you about starting the next great chapter of your life? Or when you think of the next great, place that you're going to call home, what excites you about that? Try to get dopamine rushes going in conversations. With Bruce, when he comes to mind is, hey, Bruce, when you find the next great place to call home, what excites you about that? And what are the core key factors? Now, he might just tell me he's been a renter forever, and the core key factors are X, and I want to make sure that Bruce is enjoying the conversation and feeling uplifting. Heck, I was going to tell this story a little bit later, but I'm going to tell it now. So, great agent, I worked with years ago. We would start to practice our conversations. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm just going to disclose this. I have a heavy foot. I've been in the back of police cars for going too fast. I've done a lot of charity work to get me out of those very expensive tickets. So to me, the blue lights bring back some challenging memories that I deserved. So I was practicing conversations with this one agent. And it went something like, how long have you been looking for a home? Have you been pre-approved? Are you working with another agent? They were checking the boxes, but it felt like an interrogation. As opposed to, well, hey, really appreciate you calling on 123 Smith Street. Well, I've got you on the phone and I'm going to be pulling up my MLS. What was it about 123 Smith Street that got you excited to make this phone call today? And hey, have you been looking for long, or, and when do you hope to start the next great chapter of your life? Try to add some words that are going to add some spice to the emotions to it. Spice probably is not the right word. So, yet I digress, get a little off topic there. So as we can look at this funnel in the capturing phrase, the first step is definitely to capture them. We've got to have a system in place to do that, whether we're calling expireds, running open houses, running Zillow leads, so forth and so on. Secondly, we're going to capture all the leads and preferably get them into our database and continue to cultivate the relationship using touch campaigns. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. If they're part of our automated systems, be it if we're using Command or some other CRM, internet leads may come in and automatically populate those. I'll challenge everybody on here. If you do not have one of those CRMs yet, consider developing just a simple lead form that helps you ask the questions you need to ask. If it's for buyers, how long you've been looking for a home? What are the 4 key factors in the next great place you call home? In a perfect world, when would you be living in your new home as opposed to what time do you want to be in this? And create that little form, keep a stack next to your desk so that you can actually use those when you're lead generating to keep you on track. So we know this, but all leads may not be ready for an appointment. So our next goal is to gain mind share. And the best way we can gain mind share is to make sure that when we're talking with them, again, we're getting dopamine rushes going, as well as they know that we're actually connecting with them about their goals. Now, we can work on some activities to help make sure that we have a system place to capture in this. So the next step of the process is to connect. Connecting is about laying the foundations of a working relationship. What's important to this step, and this is the toughest one that I have had to slay, and I don't always slay it well, is to listen. As a high I who drinks too much coffee, I love hearing myself talk. And yet one of the most powerful negotiation tactics and connectivity tactics is remembering that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So goal of communication, again, building the relationship and determine their urgency, give them enough information to know how to prioritize this lead and to help us decide what type of touch campaign we can use. As we communicate and connect, keep in mind some of the best practices. Embed your value proposition into the conversation to position yourself as a local expert. Anybody want to take a crack at doing that? I'll take a crack at it. So, for example, I've got a very good friend, one of our agents is not in a great shape physically, that had some health urgencies. So I've been talking with some of their clients. And so one of the things that I've been saying is, hey, I look forward to talking with you X time. When we do, please ask all questions, because I'd like to better learn how I can leverage my 30 years in the industry to your benefit. Now, I'm just talking about my 30 years in. I'm trying to embed that. That might be if you're talking to me about rental properties. I own a bunch. I own a property management company with my son. And if it was Veronica, hey, Veronica, I'm really looking forward to talking with you about how we can get you and your husband up and going in the rental business. I've been a huge passionate person about rental properties. I've been in them for 30 years, and I'd love to share with you a little bit about why my family has done that in hopes we can help your family benefit from it as well. Bring them a little, but embed the value proposition into the conversation where it's possible. Build and have confidence through knowing that what you're going to say. Can't stress enough, folks. Practice what you're going to say in role play. Moment of candor. And feel free to raise your little, hand or your digital hand. How many people have practiced their lead generation in the last 30 days, 1 or more times?
0.
Appreciate your candor. Guessing nobody's jumping, nobody's correcting me. I have done it. So with a loving poke, in addition to hopefully leveraging some other things, reach out to somebody in your market center, and here's a challenge for you. Try to find 3 people to role play with. And maybe it's once a week. Role play
Diana
with somebody.
said daily. Sorry.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Side note, your goal isn't to become a robot. Your goal is to be able to know the forms so well that you can be formless. That meaning, like if you're talking with, are people here familiar with the DISC personality profile? We've got a few head shakes. So if you're not familiar with it, Google it or ask your team leader for a DISC personality profile class. So D's are hard drivers. I's are very interpersonal. They talk a lot. S are very relationship based. C's are very analytical. How I communicate when I'm on my A game with those different personality profiles will be wildly different. With high D's, I'll go right for it, challenge the situation or give them options. With S's that are relationship based, I try to slow down, not rush them into anything. So practice the different personality types. Back to the 3. So one partner, look for, and just talking about 15 minutes, one time a week with each of these people. 30 would be even better. One, somebody who's about at your level. Another new agent, that's struggling with this, maybe hasn't done it much yourself. And it may start in the beginning by just reading some of the dialogues out loud. The second person, somebody who scares you a little bit. Somebody who makes it like, oh God, I'm going to lead, I'm going to practice my objection handling with this person. Why would I suggest you do that?
Because sometimes a client might scare you too.
Bingo. Drew Nichols, thank you very much for that. The goal is that if you practice your conversations enough, hopefully it's more scary in the practice than it is in the real world. Now, the third option is suggestion is somebody not as good as you. Why would you do that? From Rena, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I like it. What's another reason to practice what we're going to say with somebody who's not as good as us?
To build our confidence.
Spot on. There's also one more thing as well.
Help
Rena
that other
says to
person out.
learn.
So to learn from. So there's a phrase, mental scaffolding, and I think it came from Adam Grant's Hidden Potential, another phenomenal book. Side note, guys, challenge you, get onto Audible, listen to it all the time. But when we teach somebody, we actually refine our models and our systems, and we better learn them. So if I'm going to teach Donna you how to evaluate multifamilies, I'm probably going to teach you better than I'll necessarily do it myself, because I'm okay if I screw up. I'm not okay if my friend Donna goes out and does something on her own and screws that up. So again, equal skill level. So it's good Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, somebody who's better so they teach you, and then somebody who's not quite as good so that you're teaching them, which makes you study the process of the various dialogue tracks we use. Does that make sense?
Svetlana also stated that create trust.
Bingo. Absolutely. Love all of those. And again, this is a finger wag. Sorry, guys. Probably the most underestimated thing in our industry is practicing our conversations. Feel like I may be getting a little off track, so let me try to get back on. So one of the things to also do is use backward design when you're thinking about your communications. Does anybody care to guess what I mean by backward design?
Just going back to the other one, Drew said agents helping agents. Aha.
Love it. Thank you very much, Drew, playing it right back at us. Hell of a job. Andrew Franco.
I would say visualizing like your end goal and then just visualizing the steps you would have taken or should take to reach it from the beginning. So you're just working backwards to achieve your forward progress.
Spot on. So a couple things that come to mind. If you never underestimate A, practicing, but B, writing out if you've had a serious, conversation with a lead that you're trying to convert, never underestimate writing out your opening statement and make it 60 seconds or less. The other thing is don't hesitate to take, to write down little notes on a piece of paper to help you complete that reverse and, engineering of that conversation. So slightly off of lead follow-up and conversion, but I had a team member from another company who just bought a house. It was advertised how wonderful the pergola was. Guess what was taken out the day of closing? The pergola. Now I'm going to call a very headstrong broker who tried to dismiss me over the phone that this was not really an issue. And this is one of my wife's key team members. So I got to get it done. Before I make the call, and I've actually tried to make it today, I went through not only the opening statement, some questions I would ask to help get to where I wanted to go. And as much as I wanted to tell this person what they needed to do, my goal, which I figured out in my head, is going to get them to author the solution. Because if it's their idea, they're going to love it. Like for example, in that case, I'm going to ask them, hey, I'm looking for help. What do you want? How do you want me to play this situation? I think we could do X, X, and Y, but really, what do you think? So while I'm rambling a little bit, and hopefully that's helpful, use backward, engineering or design to engineer your conversations. Side note, when we get to talking about setting appointments, please remind me to share some of the tips and tricks that I did not see in the manual that'll hopefully bring you guys value as well on this. So the 6 connection questions, and guys, don't ask them how they're read on this screen. Your name, what are you looking to do? Where do they want it or need it? Try to find a way to get these questions to flow naturally from yourself. So quick little homework. I encourage you guys to Google LP Mama. LP Mama. And I think it's location, price, motivation. And I think now I'm embarrassed because here I am using an acronym and I can't remember all of it. I think, LP Mama is, location, price, motivation, I think action. And then the other one is mortgage and, agent is the middle one. Are they working with an agent? So LP Mama, it's a great little, follow-up to make sure you're asking your customers when you're talking on the phone to get their key timeframes, goals, and so forth. These questions, and I wouldn't ask them like this, I'd ask them like LP Mama or the 4 key factors questions if it's a buyer, are going to help them open up so that you guys find out what their motivation is. These, may or may not be specific to the business that we're in, but take some time to plan for framework of a conversation. One of the acronyms that has been really helpful for me, and this is more of a networking situation than necessarily following up with a buyer lead, is the acronym FORD. Does anybody know what FORD stands for?
Family, occupation, relationship,
recreation. Very good.
recreation.
Oh, you're doing great. Keep going. And the last one, what do you got for a D?
Don't know.
Dreams.
Dream.
So I encourage you guys again with, coming for contribution, burn that one into your skull. FORD. It's a great networking thing at parties. Hey, Bo, Brian Armstrong, it's great to meet you. Tell me, you're from the area, you got family. What do you do for work? In your off time when you're not slaying dragons, what do you do for recreation? Snowboarder, or skier? Tell me about some of the dream vacations. You will be amazed at how well you get to know people with that acronym. All right. So in your participation guide, again, you're going to find a list of questions categorized to buyers and sellers. Here's another pause. And hopefully you guys will give me a good rate, good feedback on this, but be candid when you do. Also, don't hesitate to build your bunker around where you're lead generating. Bo, if I can ask you a question. Looks like it's your home
Sure.
office. Is that normally where you work real estate when you're working?
Yeah. Yep.
So consider a couple things. These acronyms, or if you look at a dialogue that you like, or objection handling techniques, consider putting them on the wall near where you guys are working.
Makes sense. Yep.
And then you might see, like I knew one agent was built their bunker. They had objection handles all around their monitor that would help them look up and see one and then pull it down. So think about your bunker where you're doing this. And yet I digress. So as we go through the cultivation process relationship, we want to learn as much about these people as absolutely possible. What they're looking to do, when they're looking to do it by, and very importantly, why. Now, be sure to document as much as possible your conversations, and their ideal outcomes in your database immediately after you talk with them, or even take some notes and then do it in a follow-up later. And you may be surprised that if you take really great notes, just how long you can stay in this relationship with somebody and incubate them. So I'll give you an example. When I was co-owner of a real estate team, we had a pond system. So everybody had their top 20 leads that they would actively work. And then there's this big lead database of about, I think, 6,000 people. And we would have specific nights that we would call out of the pond. And if I spoke to Sue Doyle and she told me she was buying her next house to get closer to her grandkids, stuff like this, if I could make those notes into that system, then if Bo was also on my team, or Bruce was on my team, the next time they were in the pond, they could call this person and say, hey, I understand you spoke to Brian 6 months ago. You're expecting your 4th grandson. You're trying to get to Vermont by November. Those little notes will help you stay connected with people at a higher level. Any thoughts, questions on that, or pushback? So this is a good time to introduce the sweep question I referenced, and I think I may have mentioned it before. If you're talking with buyers, I would either use LP Mama, or this is a Brian Armstrong original. What are the 4 key factors in the next great place you call home? Now, envision the time on that versus, hey, Connor, when do you hope to buy your home? How many bedrooms are you looking for? Have you been to a loan officer yet? You can imagine how long that conversation will take. Versus, hey, Connor, if you don't mind, why don't you unmute and we'll role play for a second. And if you mind, you can just say, I'll pass. So let's pretend you're buyer calling in. You're calling in on XYZ Street. So, hey, Connor, while I'm pulling that up, on the MLS system, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what are the 4 key factors in the next great place you call home?
I'd like to have a little privacy. I don't want to be too close to my neighbors. More recent updates, nice yard, and go 2 bathrooms.
I'm hearing privacy. I'm hearing updates. It sounds like, did you say a 2nd bathroom?
Yeah.
Yep. And, modern updates. What about your privacy? What about privacy is important to you? And what does that mean to you?
I just don't want to be able to see my neighbors, more or less.
Absolutely respect that. So I'm going to guess you're not as much interested in condominiums. You're thinking a little bit more of a traditional home. Would that be correct?
Yes.
So just as a snippet, and Connor, you can mute if you or mute yourself if you want. Hopefully what you saw out of that is we could cover some grounds really quickly with a sweep style question. Anybody disagree? Anybody have any different suggestions they would offer on that? Okay, so a couple of things that come to mind. Keep a strong, well-documented record communication. We just touched on that. I would also encourage people to rate their leads. Now, there's a bunch of different systems out there. Has anybody heard of any that they would like to share? So a couple things that come to mind. 1, A-leads. To me, 30 to 60-day decision makers. And if they're 30 to 60-day decision makers, how often do you think you might want to follow up with them?
Every couple days.
Every couple days. It's probably not a bad one. A couple times a week, which is pretty close to every couple days. All right. So for me, B leads, 60 to 90 days. What comes to mind, for people in the maybe 60 to 90 days? How often do you think you want to follow up with them?
Weekly?
Weekly, listen to your gut. My 2 cents, probably every couple of weeks.
Mhm.
60 to 90 days, or even every 3 weeks. As a side note, and challenge me if I offend anybody so I can grow. I would tell you that if they're saying 6 months, they may do as early as 3 months. If they're telling you 3 months, it may even be as early as 6 weeks. So one of our big goals, which we'll get into in a little bit, is being in communication with them enough they feel, that they want to call you if that happens. Now, I would probably say C leads are 90 to 120 days, and D leads are anything beyond that. But please do not underestimate lead follow-ups that could happen over a couple of years. Elizabeth, love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for sharing. Go ahead.
No, I just was gonna ask you if you can repeat this C and the D, please.
Yeah, so we'll go through the A, I would say 30 to 60. B, I would say 60 to 90. C, I would say 90 to 120. And D, anything beyond 120. And if it's on beyond 120, listen to your gut, but maybe once a month. And again, don't hesitate with the guilt removing follow-up. Hey, Veronica, it's Brian Armstrong calling. I know you and you weren't thinking about buying until another few months from now, but I just wanted to touch base, see if you had any questions on the market. So as you're getting closer to that, we can make sure you're in the best shape to maximize, the market. If I don't hear from back here shortly, no problem. I'll just follow up in another month or so. I hope all is going well. Elizabeth.
I'm gonna go directly and ask you the question about particular lead.
Please.
Okay. So I have a lead. It's in my database. They are a really good buyers. They already own a home. They have a lot of equity. Professionals. Show them a house and all that. Once they went to look for the mortgage, something happened, and they said we don't want to look right now. And so I have them right now just on the monthly newsletter, but I don't want to lose them because they are really good leads. So any suggestions?
Yeah, and I encourage everybody, if they've got some suggestions in a second, share them as well. So, some suggestions, one of the things that I'll encourage people is to go with the energy. Now, what I mean by that is, if you sense that something happened where they're just backing off, I wouldn't try to say, hey, no, we can fix this. Unless, of course, they're saying, hey, I'm really bummed. I was hoping to do this sooner. But I would probably just say, first and foremost, hey, no problem whatsoever. Would you be offended if I just touch base once, every 30 days or so to see if anything's changed, if there's anything I can help you with? So I like to ask for permission for follow-up, because if they give it to you, then you've been granted permission. I have yet to have somebody say, no, you can't follow up with me. And if they ever did, I'd probably take a look in the mirror and ask what I did on that one. So Elizabeth, did that help a little bit?
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do, but I just didn't want to keep being way too pushy.
Yeah, the other thing, guys, that come to mind, and what I'm about to share with you is I'm working on a merger right now, and I'm candid with you. I'm challenged by the cadence. They show interest, and I want to get them a bunch of stuff, but I also know this person owns several businesses, so I don't want to bombard them with stuff. So don't hesitate sometimes to just be really authentic with people. Hey, Elizabeth, it's unfortunate now is not the right time. I'm sure there will be a right time in the near future. And I just want to be candid with you. I'd love your permission to follow up and touch base with you every so often, but I don't want to necessarily pester you or bother you. So if I was to touch base once every 30 days, would that be all right with you? And they might push back and say, no, just call me every couple months or something like that. But I think if you're authentic, people will appreciate it. And hopefully it will give you a candid answer in response.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add with that
Please.
scenario that you've just kind of talked through, it becomes a two-way street. and now they've made a commitment to you on their timeline. And you can still add in, something along the lines of, that sounds great. I'll check in with you then. If things change, you always know how to reach me, or something along those lines. That way, the door is always open. I could say I've been that buyer, and it was no lack of interest. It was a financing hurdle, and we just had to wait it out. There was no way around it. So I wouldn't lose. I would stay encouraged. I'm sure they're still looking to buy.
Drew, I really appreciate the community, the conversation, contribution, and anybody, feel free to jump up. But Drew, you also probably bring up a great point. Some people will be very candid, just say, yeah, I didn't realize I co-signed my stepson's loan and he didn't pay it. So I'm going to be challenged for another 6 months. Other people are going to be really embarrassed by whatever, right or wrong about situations. So as the opportunity feels right, like if it was you, Drew, and we had started shopping 3 months ago and then went cold, I'd say, man, hey, Drew, we were working together. Things seem to be going well. If you don't mind me asking, what happened a few months ago that we stopped looking for homes? Because I want to make sure that we tackle that for you in advance. Now, you might share with me, you might not, but if you might say, yeah, I ran into some credit issues, I co-signed a loan, because at those times, we might want to know details in where we can hopefully get them to talk with, certain mortgage providers that may be more diligent than others. And as a pause, and this is entirely off topic, I would encourage people as they're getting up and going in this business, get to know your mortgage lenders and try to get people to mortgage lenders that you think are hustlers in the best connotation of the word. Because there are loan officers that just push things like, this is what I'm doing, I'm taking an application. And then there's hustlers that, look at programs, exceptions, policy guidelines that they can push. And that'll make a big difference. In that case, Elizabeth, if you knew that loan officer, I wouldn't hesitate to ask the loan officers anything you can share with me. They can't share information, but they might be able to say, no, Brian will be fine. It's just going to be a few more months before he's ready to buy. That might help you as well. Any other thoughts or feedback based upon what Drew said or Elizabeth? Any challenges? I call BS on that, Brian.
Raina, offer to use all of your resources to help them if they would like.
Absolutely. All right. So you can't know or predict when they will come to a decision. But certainly, if we're reconnecting with them in a systematic way, we'll have a much better chance of being there when they do. And that's when we'll be able to close for an appointment. So has anybody ever heard the phrase in sales, ABC? And do they know what it means?
Always be closing.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys helping me out with that one. Always be closing. So when you guys think of a close, you're probably thinking of an appointment right now. But I wouldn't, I'd go deeper than that. I'd look for the next action step. So if James Lloyd said to me, hey, Brian, I'm not going to be ready for a few more months. We got to get a few things in order for the house ready to sell that. Hey, I can absolutely appreciate that. James, we only want you to sell the house when it's time for you. If there was an opportunity to help you better prepare for selling your home, would you be open to an exploratory meeting next week so that when it's right for you to sell your home in a few months, you're better prepared? He might say yes, he might say no. Now, if you're talking with buyers and they really like a property, but they haven't been pre-approved, think of, and this is a little important one, again, I hope you guys don't mind me going off topic a little bit, is think about the control of that conversation. So hopefully this doesn't sound egotistical. Let's say you're talking with me, your customer's got a hands on a few different things. Hey, Brian, what you need to do before we go see XYZ Street is go ahead and get pre-approved, because if you're going to bid an offer in, we want the seller to take you seriously. Would you do me a favor and call some of these loan officers and get back to me? Or do you think there's a higher conversion rate? Hey, Gina, I know you're really, busy right now, and I know you really want to get into this house on Saturday, and it seems to be the right fit for you. It's got the X, Y, Z that are the 4 key factors that we talked about. Would it be all right if I was to have a loan officer give you a call? And if they did, could you give them 15 minutes of your time? Slight but big difference. And now the key thing there is going to be able to have a loan officer that you trust, a loan officer that's going to follow up for you, and a loan officer that's going to give you what information they can reasonably share. I connected with Gina. She's good to go. She's really excited to go out with this weekend. That may help you get these leads to a position where they can actually make decisions sooner than later. Thank you, Diana. I love teaching, but I always want to make sure I'm respecting you guys' time, especially on a Monday night. All right. So, a couple things that come to mind. If we're working with these leads, and internet leads can sometimes be 18-month, follow-up. Side note, how many of you ever put more than a year into planning a vacation? Rena has. Rena, where was that vacation?
St. Thomas.
Nice. So if we plan vacations a year or so out, do you think it's possible people are planning a home purchase or home sale more than a year out? So again, we all love the low hanging fruits that people are ready to buy right now, but oftentimes the real fruit is in the lead follow up for those longer term leads. So we have that systematic, pipeline of leads coming in. So I encourage you guys, and these are the things that I'd do differently if I started this career over again. I can tell you one of the things I would learn if I was starting this career over again is some of the various campaigns within Command or any of the CRMs that you're using. Now, the benefit of keeping the drip plans going is that it'll help us keep mind share going. And it'll cultivate for a relationship and make it easier to actually set the appointment. So in Ignite so far, and I'm going to guess with some of the other sessions, we have learned that oftentimes it takes 19 attempts, I think it's to connect, 1 to cement it and 36 to convert. So one of the things about the 36 touch system, 12 newsletters, 4 phone calls a year, which can be around 4 events a year is also a good thing, is it gives you great reason to follow up with people. If your market center is doing events, such as the Market Center in Decatur, Vermont, we do a Halloween event, we do Easter egg event, we had Santa Claus last year. I had to play him. It was really bad. The year before we had reindeer. But the great thing about those type of events is it gives you invites to send out. Sorry, I did not know that was going to do that. It gives you reasons to follow up. It gives you experiences to invite people to. And then it gives you follow-up contacts. So for example, if Gina had stopped by our reindeer event, I probably would have had 3-4 invites out, possibly could have called her beforehand. And then afterwards I would have called up, hey Gina, it was great to see you. And blank, I just hope you had a great time last Saturday. Hey, by the way, since you got you on the phone, I know you weren't thinking of buying or selling for another few months. Anything change? Any questions come up to the markets, the market that I could help you with? Follow up, follow up, follow up. So as you start to implement your touch campaign, you can always pursue creating your own touch campaigns to fit your business needs. It's recommended you start, with 3 basic ones that introduce you first until you have a solid understanding of how the touch campaigns work. And if you get really creative, you might have a touch campaign for a buyer, a touch campaign for an investor, and a touch campaign for sellers. Side note, be very, very careful that you get stuck into the crevasse that a lot of agents do. They're spending so much time working on their flyers, working on their drip campaigns that they're not actually talking with people. And I have definitely fallen into that trap before. Rena, by your head shake, I'm going to guess you may have been there once or twice before as well. Okay. So In your participant guide, if you got them, great. If not, refer back. Closing is when we actually ask for an appointment. Think of the framework as you're concluding one conversation and seeing if there's a new one that can take place. I do like that analogy. It's your responsibility to ask for the appointment. Just like touches, you stay in, used to stay in emotional proximity, having varying degrees of effectiveness. So does the format in which you ask for the close. Now, you could ask in a text, on an email, on a phone call, or in person. Where do you think it's most effective?
In person.
Yep, I'd say in person, second, followed by the phone.
Yeah, Veronica says phone call.
Now, again, I think those phone calls and in persons are the most effective. But remember who you're talking with. If they're super busy or a millennial or a Z, you might have to go for the closes in a text, sometimes even an email. So, couple thoughts on closes. One, anybody here familiar with Phil Jones? I think Connor's shaking his head a little bit. He's done a lot with Keller Williams. He's got a couple books out there. They're short reads. One of them is Exactly What to Say. And one of the things, I'll give you an example. It might say when you're setting an appointment for a close, Bo, I was wondering if you'd be open-minded to have just a quick exploratory cup of coffee next week to discuss, this blank. He uses the phrase open-minded because who wants to be close-minded? Another fair trade, this is called a fair trade. Hey, Veronica, if we were to get together, let's pretend I was calling you for rent ads. Side note, I'm a big fan of for rent ads. When I was front lines, I got 5 transactions out of 1 for rent ad. I would call people up and say, hey, Veronica, I know your house is advertised for rent. I was curious if you ever thought about selling it. Now, let's say in that conversation, Veronica said, no, Brian, I'm not trying to sell the house. I'm trying to rent it. I don't know if you can read or not. Hey, Veronica, if in 20 minutes I could share with you some ideas on how to increase your cash flow and increase the value of your portfolio, would you be open to a 20-minute cup of coffee? So it's a fair trade. I want to discuss with you how to increase your cash flow and the value of your portfolio. In exchange, give me 20 minutes for my time. So a fair trade is another attempt to possibly close as well. So, and I'm going to get a little off track, but I want to respect your time. So I'm going to jump to a couple other things. How many of you have ever tried to set an appointment and you heard, well, let me check with my spouse? Side note, if you have a spouse and you don't do that, you're in trouble. You're not going to have that spouse for long. So what comes to mind when they say, hey, let me check with my spouse? Anybody have any good objection handling techniques for that? To set the appointment? So here's one that I learned a long time ago that has been really, really effective. Hey, Gina, I can absolutely appreciate you want to check with your spouse. You wouldn't be a good spouse if you didn't. If next Thursday at 4 worked for your spouse, would it work for you? Now, if she said yes, I'd say, hey, Gina, let's do this. Let's tentatively mark it down for next Thursday at 4 o'clock. And I'll shoot you a text 2 days before just to confirm that it works for you and your spouse. And if it doesn't, no problem, we can reschedule. Now, as a side note, I think if you try those, whether it's for listing or for buyers and stuff like that, you will set more appointments. Your conversion rate might suffer a little bit because you may have a few more no-shows because Gina called to reschedule and stuff like that. But I found that tactic has saved me a lot from ping-ponging back and forth. Hey, Gina, sorry, Thursday at 4 doesn't work. How does Friday at 2 work? Great, check with your spouse, circle back to me and go forth. So that's another one that's helped me set a lot of appointments. So we're also not just looking for a yes as a response for getting an appointment. So as a side note, when I've helped launch Keller Williams in Vermont, we started in 2009. And for those of old enough to remember, the market was in fill in the blank in December of 2009 when we launched this. And I was, we had to get 35 agents in 2 months to get our franchise. I was doing a lot of lead generation as a recruiter, and I was getting pretty good at setting appointments, but then I realized I had a 50% show rate on appointments. Not good. And what that helped me realize was, and my coach pointed this out, I wasn't bringing enough value to the conversation. Why do you think they were saying yes and not showing up?
Sorry
Anybody?
to interrupt. Gina, did you have a question? I saw your hand go up.
I just wanted to say, isn't it sometimes okay just to get the no because you don't want to waste your time anyway? I mean, if they're giving you that many objections, is it going to be
Absolutely.
really that close to doing something?
Absolutely, Gina. Thank you for bringing that point up. If you feel that they're not qualified, they're not serious, or it's not really a good fit, then I think walking away from an opportunity is a good one. And you got to listen to your gut on that one. And so I would just, I guess I'm repeating myself, but I would listen to your gut and ask yourself the question, do we think they have viable goals? Do we think we can help them? Do we think we can bring value? And then make the decision from there. So, one of the things that comes to mind as a side note is sometimes the people that come back at you the hardest can at times be some of the best people to work with. Now, what I mean by that is you got to see if the situation adds up. For example, we have a gentleman coming in tomorrow to potentially liquidate 8 properties. He's one of our property management clients. He's meeting with one of our top real estate teams. The gentleman started off the meeting with me pushing back, hammering me on rates. And what I realized right out of the gate was this guy was a very high D personality. He was going to come off, fill in the derogatory blank. At the same time, if I could meet him head on, he might actually respect me to the point where he actually, calms down and we can actually talk. And in that case, he ended up being a client of ours, for I think 2.5, 3 years. He's been with us. And then tomorrow he's talking about liquidating a potential portfolio. But again, Gina raises a great point. If you've got somebody who is absolutely absurd or unreasonably rude, or you just don't think it's a good fit, don't hesitate to just walk from the lead, but make sure you're not saying that every time you talk to somebody who throws an objection out at you. Any other thoughts or questions on Gina's very valid point? Okay. So as soon as we get yeses for appointments, first and foremost, let's make sure we're bringing them value. So if you're confident you've had a great, conversation and you've connected with them, then you may not need to do this step. If Gina, I was prospecting you and you had some investment properties you didn't want to sell, and I just get but I thought there's a chance, and you were really busy, I might just confirm, hey, Gina, respecting you're not really looking to sell right now, but it seems like you're willing to get together and talk about increasing your cash flow and your portfolio value. What is 1 or 2 things that I could be prepared to talk about that would make sure that you're using your time as wisely as possible? She might say, hey, I've heard about these 1031 exchanges, not familiar with them. Great. So if I brought the information on a 1031, would that bring value to your time? Not a great sort of role play back to you guys, but you can sense what I'm trying to do is anchor the value that they're going to get from the conversation. All right. So as soon as we set, appointments and schedule appointment, try to do it obviously as reasonably quick as possible, especially if it's an A lead, 30, 60-day decision maker. One thing to keep in mind is location. So first and foremost, when you think about location, think about your personal safety. It is a little bit of a different business where we offer to meet customers so quickly, often who we do not know who they are. As a side note, we have a gentleman, and I'm going to use that term extremely loosely, that has created a profile at our local police department because he is shopping, says he's buying a house all the time, goes to different, offices, goes to different open houses, and has had some questionable conduct that leads us in the police to think he does not have good intentions. So think first about your personal safety. What's another idea as far as where to set the appointment and why? So here are a couple ideas on that.
One that would be comfortable for the client.
Excellent one. Excellent. Think
Veronica
about
says cafe.
Absolutely. Another great suggestion too. Side note, you may find cafes in your area that are quieter than others. I like to go to Barnes and Nobles because they have all the fancy overrated, overcalorie drink that Starbucks has. Sorry, guys. But it's generally much quieter at the Barnes and Nobles. Library, actually haven't heard that one, Veronica, but that one could be a great one as well. If you were thinking about meeting with this, well, actually, this goes with buyers too. What's the benefit of meeting them at your office? Diana.
Yeah.
Why did you say that, Diana?
I just feel it's a central location and it's totally safe for
Yeah,
both
so
parties.
what's the other thing when you walk into an office building? What are you thinking about?
You got to do business.
Bingo. So this is very much a have form but be formless part of a conversation. There's times where I would absolutely volunteer to meet people to a cafe. Either I sense they're a little guarded or they're far away from my office. There's times that I'll want to meet people at the office because it speaks business, formal. We're going to make decisions. This is important here. But always keep in mind, safety and what can be best for the sellers and buyers. Side note, if you're meeting with sellers, yes, I think most of us go to the sellers' houses, but I know more than a few top agents who have met them at their office for the same reasons, Diana, you just recommended, meeting people at the office. It's a business environment. They see the professional setting, so forth and so on.
Yeah, Gina says it establishes credibility. Raina says it's professional, and Veronica also said it's professional.
Love them all. Thank you, Katie. So Gary Keller, in the end, if they can meet and have a good enough reason to meet, they will meet. And if they don't, they won't. And that's okay. You really don't care what their answer is. I might challenge that one. What their answer ultimately is, because you're not getting people to do anything they don't want to do. You're just going to ask and respond until they agree with a meeting with you that makes sense or it doesn't. Either way, you both win. When you guys think of our value system, the Y4C2Ts, which value system comes to mind on this? Here's what comes to mind for me. Win-win or no deal. And customers always come first. As a side note, I will tell you and I say this today on the merger I've been working on. One of the things that I have found consumers, be it business owners or homeowners, find pleasantly interesting is when you let them know that it's okay if they choose not to work with you. Some of my best seller conversations began with, hey, Connor, one of three things is going to happen today. You may decide to help, to hire me to help, sell your home and optimize the value of your home to, start your next great chapter in Burlington, Vermont. Option two, you may decide not to hire me, and that's okay. Option three, I may decide that we're not a great fit because I can only provide the service that I provide by working with those sellers that are serious about their goals or objectives. Other thing with buyers, I'd probably say, hey, well, let's have an exploratory meeting. Probably take us about 45 minutes. And at the end of the meeting, We may decide that we're a great fit to continue working together. You might decide, or I might decide it's not the right fit, and I'm at peace with that. All I'm suggesting is that we get together for an exploratory conversation. Pause. The phrase exploratory has gotten me a lot of appointments, because would you guys agree that there may be some buyers or sellers out there that are afraid that if they go talk to Gina, they go talk to Veronica, they're going to be asked to sign all these documents and make big decisions right then and there? Consider the phrase exploratory. Hey, when can we get together for an exploratory cup of coffee to talk about the next great place you call home? And there we go. Okay. We've got about 15, 20 minutes left, but any ahas since we last asked about ahas?
Bo said be authentic.
People will sense it. And that's where guys, can't stress enough. Practice, practice, practice so you can be authentic, as opposed to practice a little bit and you sound like a robot. Let's hear maybe 3 more. What ahas since we've last asked?
I like when you say, well, I really appreciate you want to include your spouse. How about next Thursday? And then I will follow up. I like that.
Yeah, that one's been very, very effective. Veronica, be professional in listening. Side note, I think you guys will know when you're doing a great job listening when somebody says, hey, did I lose you? And your reply is, no, Bo, I just want to make sure I heard everything you and your wife had to say. I want to make sure I get all this down so we get this done right for you. Fizbo, can I have 20 minutes of your time? Love that. Side note, if you go in on something like a 20 minutes or a 30 minutes to have an exploratory conversation, and you look at your clock and you realize it's been 19 minutes, what should you do?
Offered to let them end the meeting there or continue on.
Bingo. Hey, Drew, I said it was only going to be about 20 minutes. I realized about 19. I want to respect your time. You want to keep going on this, or do you want me to circle back, in a couple days?
Raina also says LP Mama. Drew said hustler mortgage lenders. Raina says sign, and James says combination that carries value.
Yep. Love them all. Love them all. All right. Let's keep rocking and rolling. So improving your conversion rate. You learn the model steps, action it takes to convert a lead, set an appointment. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into conversion rates and how it can inform your business decisions. I already talked a little bit about that, but we'll revisit that a little, quickly. And basically straightforward. If you had 10 leads and you were able to talk to them and set 8 of them, you'd have an 80% conversion rate. I would try to find out the various lead sources and what conversion rates you get, so that, and I think it was Bruce, you might have said, or somebody might have said, tracking their leads earlier on to know the price behind them, you're getting a return on your lead expenditures and so forth and so on. The challenge is not the number of leads generated, but your ability to get them to an appointment. I'll challenge that a little bit. I think it's actually both of them, but it depends on the lead source. So for example, you may have heard the statistics. If Keller Williams is, research proved, if you've got 201 people in a database and you're doing a 36 touch, that agent will on average make $120,000 or more in gross close commission. I would argue if you're doing a 36 touch on your sphere of influence, you're regularly showing up to community events, or neighborhood events, your conversion rate with your sphere of influence should be much, much higher than per se an expired listing or an internet lead. And an internet lead, I'd probably say, again, you got probably 4 to 7%, conversion on that. So one of the things to take a look at is, again, tracking maybe for a period of a month your dials, because if you're not making enough dials, that one's simple. You got to make more dials. And side note, if you email KDL@kw.com and ask for tracking sheet, Katie L. And Katie, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat, I'll email you, or Katie will email. Thank you, Katie. We'll email you a lead tracking. Super simple dials, contacts. If you're not making enough contacts, you probably have to do more dials, but we need to take a look at the time of day that you're lead generating or lead follow-up. Contacts to appointments. I would argue that if it's a sphere of influence, I'd probably say, maybe not. Internet leads, I'd probably say on average, if you're making 4 or 5 contacts, probably should be able to get an appointment. So track the appointments, because if you're not getting enough appointments, then we may need to improve on how you're talking with the people. And then lastly, and this may not be on the tracker, track how many of the appointments you set up actually show up. And if you have a high rate, not showing up, you're either not bringing enough value to the conversation. But I wouldn't expect 100% of the people that you set appointments with to show up. I think if you're doing really well, 80% will show up. If you're not doing well, probably 50% will show up. But 80% means life happens, their kids get sick, they have an opportunity. That 20% just has to go to different things and deal with it. Any questions on those comments about lead conversion? Good. So sometimes lead conversion is based on total number of leads, sometimes based just on the leads. We actually just covered that. What's important, evaluate the business and what works for you. And then again, remember the generations that you're dealing with. Side note, modulate your speed accordingly. If I'm talking, I was very honored. My mother had one of her friends give us a call the other day. Woman was sharp as a tack at 85. I needed to slow down my rate of speed when I was talking with her. Not something I'm good at. So as we take a look at conversion rates, and I'll give you guys this a little bit of a homework. 2 days in the next week, track your lead generation activities, dials, contacts, appointments set, and analyze your conversion rate. And feel free, my email is barmstrong@kw.com. And Kay, would you put that in the chat? barmstrong@kw.com. And if you find that you're challenged with your conversion rates, please don't hesitate to email me. Be happy to grab 15, 20 minutes one-on-one with at least a few of you and just give you some thoughts that might help out with that, or even practice a call. So a couple things that come to mind to help with your lead conversion. Consider blocking it off in your calendar. We talked about that earlier. Now, as a side note, one of the bold laws from the class, Business Objective Life by Design, is if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. I'll have to confess to this group, since I don't know you all that well. I asked to put my mother on a biweekly repeating lunch appointment, and I think she took that as cold. My son has to schedule time with me. Where I was more thinking, Mom, if you're in my calendar, I'm not moving anything. If you looked at my calendar, and Katie knows this, I have got the perfect calendar if I only followed it. So, moment of extreme candor, for 30 years, I have battled me in my calendar. If you guys are new into this business, I would challenge you, really try to build the perfect calendar, but give yourself compassion if you don't follow your lead generation or lead cultivation time, but make sure you replace it. And I think what will happen is if you've got lead generation in your calendar 5 days a week, which is what we all should have, but not many of us do, but you end up doing it too, give yourself some acknowledgement. You did more than most agents. Now next week, can we do for 3 lead generation sessions? Same thing with your lead follow-up and lead conversion. Maybe you didn't hit every session, but if you hit more of them than less, don't beat yourself up too much, because you're probably doing better than most agents. But my recommendation, put lead conversions in your schedule. Consider once or twice a month having your lead follow-up time be from 4 to 6 on a Wednesday or Thursday, because that has proven to be a time that you're more likely to get people. And if you use the notes that you have, if you're following up with people and you've taken notes, you could probably have some really authentic conversations very quickly. Hey, so-and-so, I just wanted to touch base. Last time we spoke, you just found out your grandson's going, in December, if I remember correctly, that's next month. How's that going? And you're really excited to welcome to Earth. Little touches that will seem, and they should be, very authentic. They'll also help you, gauge or gain more of the person's mind share. So try not to, neglect any part of your data, lead database. Reconnect with each person. And when you do, ask for referrals. So as a side note, anybody feel guilty about reaching out to friends or families that they haven't talked to a while about the join, Keller Williams and get up in real estate?
Yes.
Definitely.
Connor's shaking his head no.
No guilt whatsoever, Connor. You're just like, okay. So how do that's a little odd. We can talk later about that, Connor. That's an interesting one. So Drew, they ask how it's going. So some of you won't. If you don't, that's awesome. I've personally struggled with that myself, but I wouldn't hesitate. And this is a little Brian original as well. So one, the Ford acronym is a great acronym. But if I had gone through that Ford acronym and said, hey, Bo, I was just curious why I have you on the phone. I've made it a goal to help blank families. Pause. If you're reaching out to your SOI, sphere of influence, and said, hey, I haven't made a goal to make $150,000 this year. Bo, when you laughed, what were you thinking in your head when you laughed, if you don't mind?
That sounds pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, helping families sounds a lot better than saying I want to make $150,000 a year.
Yeah, making 150, you're like, yeah, good luck with that, Brian. I expect you to buy me around when you make it. Good luck.
Right. Yeah.
Versus I made a goal to help 20 families this year buy or sell a home and start the next great chapter of their life. Do you know anybody I could help? And ask. And here's the one that made me feel better doing it. Hey, Bo, I asked you for help today. What can I do to help you? Now, as a side note, I asked one guy that, and he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, I just called you and I asked you if you could do, if you could help me. He goes, I can't find anybody to mow my lawn. What do you think I did for the next 15, 20 minutes? Got him names of lawnmowers, not the brands, but landscapers, in his area. So somewhat off topic, somewhat on, because Bo, if that was you, and then you had been sweating in the Northeast heat that we've had with all that Canadian smoke, I don't know if you guys are getting it. And you're like, hey man, I am tired of mowing lawns. And Brian Armstrong got you 3 names that actually saved you that. Would you feel an obligation to think of me if you knew anybody's thinking of buy or sell real estate?
Definitely.
So
although I'd think more if you came over and mowed it, but
So I started mowing lawns when I was 10 at my father's apartment buildings. So I would be happy to do that for you, but the distance, I don't know if it's, I don't know if I could squeeze it in. Where are you again? Massachusetts?
I'm in Keene, New Hampshire, but.
All right, I could be there next weekend. How about that?
I thought that's where you were going with the story. So,
So, well, one is, I guess if I was another level of professional, I might have done that. Side note, do not underestimate ever helping a close friend out. It's amazing. Do it to help them and it'll probably come back. So I'm rambling a little bit and we've got 19 or so minutes left. So I want to make sure I cycle through a couple things, but have fun with the information and try to come back and ask for come from contribution. And then through that, actually we'll go back just a second. So through that, again, take notes, be authentic, be careful how you say it, because you might have a goal that's 150,000 through helping 20 families, but focus on the positives of it. The other thing, think about little things along the way that you can do to cement the relationship. So I'll give you an example. If you guys were talking about moving to Burlington, Vermont, I would tell you, born and raised in the state, I absolutely love it. Hey, Bo, when you come up, to check out the area. Not only let's get together, but I mentioned, I'll pull this from the sky. See in the back of your room, you got some skis hanging up your skier. Oh yeah, I love this. Well, when you get to Vermont, let's talk about, the mountains in the area, and I see if I can give you some great recommendation on which mountains to go with. Try to connect with these people. Now, don't take it so far that you're one of those salespeople that says, oh, you like water? I like water too. Don't try to connect on that level, but find things. Veronica, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but if you had a couple small little pooches that I heard bark in the background, ask about the pooches. Get to know them. And when you reach up for follow-up, hey, Veronica, I know we were talking a couple months ago. You had just welcomed little such and such in your house. How's the little guy doing? You'll be amazed at those little authentic things. So with that being said, I want to wrap this up. The next couple screens were about prospecting, taking time out. But first and foremost, did you guys, and be candid, I cherish candid conversation. Did you walk away with a couple of ahas that will help you better follow up on your leads to better pursue the life that you want to live?
Yes.
Definitely. Yep.
What questions do you have of me so we can encourage anybody, we can keep it to the topic at hand or the topic in general of real estate, period. Again, been in the industry just under 30 years, honored to be in partnership with 170 agents. What, if any, questions do you have of me on anything A to Z, including what we talked tonight about?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Okay, you said in the exploratory meeting, well, you might hire me today, or I might think that we're not a good fit. What was the third option?
The third option, so let me back up just a little bit. So I'll use exploratory conversation in setting the appointment a lot. Hey, Elizabeth, respecting that you don't know me and I don't know you, would you be open for a 30-minute exploratory conversation about helping you get to the next great place you call home, or helping you sell your home and optimizing the value? So I use exploratory to make it clear there's not going to be any big commitments asked for and stuff like that. Side note, if at that appointment I felt like you were ready to get your house on the market, I might say, hey, I know why we set this just to be exploratory, but I'm sensing you really want to get your home on the market. Would you like some time to think about this, or would you like me to get some paperwork out, see if we can actually get going on, selling this home and getting you to XYZ for XYZ area? Now, at the listing, at the listing meeting, I would often say, hey, one of three things will happen today. You will decide to hire me and help get your home on the market and get you to XYZ so that you can be with blank. B, you might decide not to hire me, and I'm okay with that. If I'm not the right agent, I'm at peace with that. The third is I may decide not to work with you. And that answer really surprises a lot of people. But Elizabeth, I'm only able to get the results that I'm able to get by working with those people that are realistic about their goals and the current conditions of the marketplace. So pause. I found when I use that, people really sort of took notice. Because what do you think most agents are in there doing? Hire me, hire me, hire me, hire me. I'm the best thing since sliced bread.
Right.
Now you've got to back that up with the confidence, as well, that you are and that you'll go the distance. Did that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Quite welcome. What are the questions you guys have? I'll move this camera so I'm not looking at an angle. Any other questions that come to mind? So with that, I'll give you a couple wrap-ups and follow-up. One, first and foremost, thank you very much for sharing your time this evening. Hopefully I've given you some follow-ups at Haas, KDL@KW.com for the tracking sheet, B Armstrong at KW.com if you want to either follow up for a question or if I can help you with some stuff. My favorite books for conversation, and this is going to sound pontifical and somewhat finger-wagging, but I can't stress enough, guys. I see so many wonderful human beings dive into real estate regulations, lending regulations, processes for buying, processes for selling, respite this, but they spend so little time practicing and studying the art of communication. So book, the one that I think you'll enjoy the most, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. I recommend it on Audible, so in your car, it's a great listening thing, or at the gym. 2, Fierce Conversations by Dr. Suzanne Scott. I'm actually certified to teach that class. To be very candid with you, Chris will read or listen like an action thriller. Fierce will be a little bit of a workout to get through. But keep in mind, just like when I go to the gym tomorrow at 6 to meet my trainer, I'm not going because I love just getting up at 6 in the morning. I know I need to do it if I want to snowboard into my 80s. But Fierce,
Brian, do you want to go to the next slide for the QR code? People were asking
absolutely,
about
thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
But Fierce will give you great, let me go back one. There we go. So Fierce will give you great models, on pun intended, to have fierce conversations, and not arguments, not, massive disagreements, but conversations that challenge reality, enrich relationships. That book has been probably the most impactful conversation book of any of the books I've listened to in the last 30 years. The other one I already mentioned, Charles Duhigg, Super Communicators. They study FBI and CIA recruiters. And what's interesting, in one section of the book, they actually put electrodes on super communicators and the people that they're talking with. Their brain, really good communicators can get to a place of neurosynchronicity with their person that they're talking with, where the brain waves almost align like a duet as opposed to a symphony. And that might be an example where somebody tells you to grow up where they grew up. Ask them 2, 3 quick questions. What did you like about growing up in Burlington, Vermont? What were some of your favorite childhood memories about, growing up in that cold state you call Vermont? You asked me that question. You took me to the lifts. You took me to the cold air that I love hitting my lungs. And I feel that Drew Nichols brought me that connection. I've got one more. I can't remember what. Oh, and I've already mentioned it. This one is really hardcore corniness. How to Win Friends and Influence People. That book I've probably listened to 5 or 6 times, and it'll talk a lot about using people's first names, the importance of not being right in every situation, and the importance of trying to phrase things in the benefit to the people, not to the benefit of you. If I had any other suggestions, I'll leave you with 2. 1, make sure you, in the next few weeks, if you haven't, write out a 3 to 5 year future self. And when you write out that 3 to 5 year future self, ask yourself, where do you want to be spiritually? I'm more like Einstein. I spell God Nature, nature. But where do you want to be spiritually? Me being in alignment spiritually means I have a low amount of conflict with the people that I'm in business with and that I love in this world. Where do you want to be with the key relationships in your life? Write them out in detail. Write them out in present tense. I lost an amazing wife to cancer just under 10 years ago, been blessed with a second wife. I did this exercise 2 weeks after she passed, and it had amazing results for me because I could have drank my way through that process in my life or turned it productive. One of those things was I have a phenomenal relationship with my stepson. We tell each other we love each other more than we have ever did while she was alive. It's beautiful, but I wrote it down to make sure it happened. Second thing, where am I? Third, then I would write out, where do you want to be financially and where do you want to be professionally? Write it out in present tense. Make sure it's big, and I mean this with love. Make sure it's worth suffering for. We're going to suffer in life by either A, not making phone calls to lead generate, and then we're going to worry about, why did that just happen? Then we're going to worry about, do we have enough leads to pay our bills? So you guys are making a decision every day how you're going to suffer. You're either going to suffer through the awkwardness of phone calls to have a robust pipeline of leads, financial opportunities, or you're going to suffer because you're not going to make the calls. You might have to go take a job you don't like or so forth. But I think if you do that future self, put it where you get ready in the morning, put it next to your computer where you lead generate in the morning, So I'll give you an example. One of my goals is to put all step kids, no natural kids. I want to stick them all in a heli when my grandson turns 10 in a few years. So I know that when I'm making lead generation calls, it's not just because I got to make calls. That's not my job. I'm doing it so I can stick my then 10-year-old son in a helicopter in Iceland and watch him fill his pants with fear and enjoyment as we heliboard. Sorry, a little TMI for that one. Now, the other thing I'll leave you guys with, and then all of you better leave afterwards, or Katie knows I'm just going to keep talking. Practice what you're going to say. Find those 3 people. Do a shout out to your market center. Hey, I'm looking for somebody to practice conversations with 3 times a week, 15 minutes, or go out and select the agents in your marketplace that you think you can help on one end, about the equal as you, or maybe even go up to some top producer. Just say, you intimidate me. Any chance we could practice our conversations once a week for 15 to 20 minutes? Do something for them in kind. Promise you'll cover a showing. Promise you'll cover open house for them. Do what you got to do for a fair trade to get their time. But I would argue, as Fierce Conversations would say, C equals R. The conversation is the relationship. And people will remember how you made them feel more than the words that you use. All the more reason to practice your words so that you can connect with them when your lead can follow up and lead generating. And at that point, I'm going to tell myself to shut up now. Guys, appreciate your time. Any feedback is welcome, how we can do better. But you guys are an amazing career. You got an amazing company. Dream big. Go out and slay some dragons.
Gina, did you have one last thing? Oh, are you waving goodbye? Oh, she was waving goodbye. Okay.
Take care, folks. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.